That's why I signed our 100-year partnership with President Zelensky last month.
Conscription is not something I would have thought about until all of this has blown up.
The United Kingdom are determined to continue to wage war against Russia. How? For how many years? 100 years. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Sachs has appeared at the EU, presumably at the invitation of the great Phidias. Keep going, Phidias. People care about what you're doing. You're doing important stuff. He's that YouTuber that got elected to Parliament, amazingly, the European Parliament. We're going to be looking at European powers' new support for Ukraine and what it tells us about globalism. Let me know in the comments and chat if Keir Starmer is the kind of person that you would follow into the jaws of death. And let me know what you think he means when he talks about 100-year war. Because in the UK, they're getting ready for conscription. That means mandatory military service is being discussed in the UK for a potential ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. Let's examine that and its bizarre, berserk connotations. And let me know if you have faith enough in these people and their ideals to follow them unto death. Let's get into that story. Here's Keir Starmer telling you that he's signed a 100-year pledge to support Ukraine. Curiously, reading off scraps of paper in his hand. Get a teleprompter, Keir!
The UK is with you today and every day. From His Majesty the King.
Look, I just want to analyse some superficial stuff. The tech is bad. Look at the lighting in that room. Isaac, who runs our tech, what do you think about that lighting in that room that Keir Starmer's in? It's not good, is it? And can you hear the echo on his mic? And why are they using bits of paper like that? I don't use a teleprompter because, blessedly, the Heavenly Father gave me glossolalia, the perpetual access to endless verbiage, and a couple of times a day it makes sense. But Keir Starmer hasn't been given that gift. He's been given the lawyerly gifts. That means he can maneuver around the mosaic of legislation quite deftly, never ever putting a foot wrong or getting a word out of place unless that word is hostage, in which he may accidentally say sausage, and that is a terrible affliction, because if you're talking about hostages and you think you're talking about sausages, you shouldn't be running a country.
The return of the sausages.
What's important, though, about the content of this badly produced video by the British government is that a pledge is being given to support Ukraine for 100 years. And a kind of do you sometimes think that there are ulterior powers watching from beyond the scenes, sort of rubbing their hands and spurring Keir Starmer on? Because this doesn't sort of make sense without the context of ulterior powers pushing for ongoing war.
To the NHS workers volunteering in hospitals in Ukraine. To the communities that took Ukrainian refugees to their heart.
It's really weird. His Majesty the King and NHS workers, we're all benefiting from that. Whether it's me taking an AIDS test much too long after the 80s for anyone to care. Have you seen the film Philadelphia where Tom Hanks gets AIDS? Bad times. Are you still grieving the loss of Freddie Mercury? Don't worry, I just pushed something down my dicky bird hole in order to... Oh no, I've got AIDS. Bloody hell, what was in that vaccine?
And that's why I signed our 100-year partnership with President Zelensky last month. Because we believe in...
All right, let's stop right here. 100-year pledge? Seriously? In a world where Elon Musk is colonizing Mars and Jeff Bezos is floating in space, does anyone honestly believe there'll even be a Ukraine or a UK in 100 years? This reeks of political grandstanding and empty promises. Keir Starmer is talking about a century-long commitment while reading off scraps of paper like he's in a high school play. The lighting is bad, the audio is worse, and the whole thing feels like a poorly produced infomercial. But here's the kicker. Who benefits from this pledge? Is it the Ukrainian people, or is it the globalist elites who thrive on endless conflict? Let's keep going.
Ukraine's fight today and the country's incredible potential to thrive in the years to come.
100-year pledge? That's a very long pledge. Have you noticed how fast the news cycle moves these days? Like that, you wake up. What's happening now? The United States has annexed Greenland. Or you wake up another day. Jeff Bezos is in space now. You wake up another day. Elon Musk and his little boy have started a new country made out of binary. Like, everything's changing so fast. There won't be a Ukraine in 100 years. There won't be a Keir Starmer. There won't be an England. Things are changing too rapidly and radically to make 100 years pledges to anything except that which is outside of time. God, the true principles. You have to start abandoning right now your attachment to things material and recognizing there is a powerful, powerful force upon which all life is strung dependently. We are strung upon a great and holy structure which we can access internally. And if instead of recognizing that and devoting our life to it, we go, I could be watching some pornography. Or I might win a lottery. That's insanity. And these people, they're like our stewards in the Museum of Madness that we call the world, trying to keep us inside the lines of materialism and rationalism. I've made a 100-year pledge to an unwinnable war. Vladimir Putin is a shitneck, and I don't mind telling you that myself. A bloody shitneck. They're just making stuff up. It's absolute insanity. You can't follow bureaucrats into the yawning fires of Hades. They're not equipped to take you there.
This is a time for unity.
You better believe it's a time of unity, and you might have noticed Ursula von der Leyen popping up there on the side. She's one of the EU bureaucratic leaders that's just pledged 3.5 billion euros of support per year to Ukraine. I don't know what's going on between Ukraine and Russia, but I'll tell you this. There are a lot of people making a lot of money from that war continuing.
In this crucial moment, as talks begin, we must work together to shape the outcome. Russia does not hold all the cards in this war.
Hold up. Conscription? Are we seriously talking about forcing young Brits to fight in a war that has nothing to do with them? Paulette Hamilton is out here saying, hey kids, your grandparents fought for this country, so now it's your turn to die for it. But let's call out the hypocrisy. If this were about protecting UK borders from migrants, she'd be labeled a far-right extremist. But because it's about globalism and supporting Ukraine, suddenly it's patriotic and noble. Give me a break. This is selective morality at its finest. And let's not forget, Russia doesn't lose wars. They outlast everyone. So what's the end game here? Sacrificing a generation for a conflict that can't be won? Let's keep moving.
It's outside of time. God, the true principles. You have to start abandoning right now your attachment to things material and recognizing there is a powerful, powerful force upon which all life is strung dependently. We are strung upon a great and holy structure which we can access internally. And if instead of recognizing that and devoting our life to it, we go, I could be watching some pornography. Or I might win a lottery. That's insanity. And these people, they're like our stewards in the Museum of Madness that we call the world, trying to keep us inside the lines of materialism and rationalism. I've made a 100-year pledge to an unwinnable war. Vladimir Putin is a shitneck, and I don't mind telling you that myself. A bloody shitneck. They're just making stuff up. It's absolute insanity. You can't follow bureaucrats into the yawning fires of Hades. They're not equipped to take you there.
This is a time for unity.
You better believe it's a time of unity, and you might have noticed Ursula von der Leyen popping up there on the side. She's one of the EU bureaucratic leaders that's just pledged 3.5 billion euros of support per year to Ukraine. I don't know what's going on between Ukraine and Russia, but I'll tell you this. There are a lot of people making a lot of money from that war continuing.
In this crucial moment, as talks begin, we must work together to shape the outcome. Russia does not hold all the cards in this war.
It's not a game. It's not a game. Russia does not hold all the cards in this war. I've got community chest here. See, a community chest, you have to go for an AIDS test. Push a Q-tip down your pee-pee. What? This doesn't make sense. I'm not playing Monopoly with people's lives. Well, actually, you are playing Monopoly with people's lives. You're pledging billions of UK taxes to a war that cannot be won in a new and bizarre alliance with atrophying European powers that have lost their mandates in their own nations, at odds with the United States that seems to be surging into some new era of golden populism in order to fight against an opponent that cannot be defeated. Russia don't lose wars. Russia maintain wars. Russia perpetuate wars. Russia can withstand Hitler. They can withstand Napoleon. They can certainly withstand Keir Starmer.
Because the Ukrainians have the courage to defend their country. Because Russia's economy is in trouble.
That's a very interesting take from Keir Starmer, and it's going to seem more interesting to you still when you see the evident bifurcation that has emerged in what was once known as the North Atlantic Alliance, in so much as Trump's America are going in a different direction. Ever see your dog slowing down or having health issues and wonder what you can do to make it better? Well, my friend, add rough greens to your dog's food for 90 days and you'll see changes that will amaze you. Guaranteed. Invented by a naturopathic doctor, Dennis Black, Rough Greens wants to invite you to give your pup the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. In the first 30 days, you will see shinier coats and increased energy. Wow, look at that shiny pup. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, and improved joint function, all due to the live nutrients you've added to their diet. By day 90, your dog will be speaking to you in English and demanding a full review of how US aid has been spent over the last 4 years. That one's an exaggeration. You're going to see better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you might even have reduced their cancer risk. Fetch a free Jumpstart trial bag for your dog today. Go to roughgreens.com, use the promo code Russell. That's RUFF Greens. Rough Greens. Roughgreens.com and use the promo code Russell and just cover shipping. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens. Give it a little scoop. It's better than when it's coming out the other end, baby. Take advantage of our special offer, Rough Greens. We should probably touch on the fact that a British politician is talking about conscription. We're talking about a flashback way back in time to the good old days of conscription. Remember that, Americans, in the Vietnam War, how everyone loved the draft, how people didn't disappear off to Canada in extraordinary numbers, then come back to become presidents and stuff. Didn't Clinton draft dodge? Did Bush draft dodge? A lot of draft dodgers about, baby. Here's Paulette Hamilton. She's a British member of Parliament saying conscription is on the cards for young British people. If you're a young British person, so if you're aged between like 16 and 50, I suppose, you could be considered for conscription. Do you love your government? Think of the love you would have to die for something. Think about what the things you would die for. Would you die for your children? Would you die for your football team? Would you die for your country? Would you die for Keir Starmer? Would you be willing to devote and sacrifice your life to some of these causes and to some of these people? Let me know in the comments and chat, because you might not have a choice, because conscription means you don't choose. You do what you're told.
Conscription is not something I would have thought about until all of this has blown up.
Okay, let's unpack this. Keir Starmer claims Russia doesn't hold all the cards, but history tells a different story. Russia withstood Hitler, Napoleon, and the Cold War. What makes anyone think they'll buckle under Keir Starmer's 100-year pledge? This whole narrative feels like a desperate attempt to justify pouring billions into a losing battle. And let's be real, who's really profiting here? It's not the average Ukrainian or British citizen. It's the military-industrial complex and the globalist elites who thrive on chaos. This isn't about freedom or democracy. It's about control and profit. Let's keep digging.
But I do think we need to start the serious discussions around conscription, because young people have not engaged, but they're going to have to, because our borders are being threatened and you cannot continue to bury your head in the sand. My parents and grandparents' generation fought for this country and enabled us to have 70 odd years where we have had relative peace and harmony. It is being threatened at the moment. So the younger generation cannot continue to say we're not going to engage, because I think we're going to have to have the discussions to say, look, something needs to change. Wow. And at the moment, we haven't got the boots to put on the ground, but those boots, some way, somehow, we need to start to talk about how that will happen.
That's amazing to hear that member of parliament, that's like a congressman or woman in your country, say that. Because if you were talking about migration and protection of borders when it comes to a subject a lot of British people are concerned about, an influx of undocumented migrants, that's sort of a big concern in my country, that there are migrants and there's a migration crisis and that it's corrupting and disrupting various communities that can't accommodate refugees or migrants or whatever you want to call them in large numbers. If she was using that exact language to describe that, she would be far right. But she's, I believe in that context, talking about UK support for the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. And in that context, she's far left. And it's extraordinary to even imagine that that can be discussed to advance the globalist cause, but it cannot be discussed to advance nationalism. So there are definitely distinct ethical traits that are being attributed to those two movements. Nationalism, that used to be regarded as the sort of height of your personal duty, to support your country, is now being denigrated and regarded as a racist and atavistic and disgusting. And globalism is being revered. Now, globalism I consider to be about the further centralization of a power that may be extraordinarily nefarious.
Boom. This is the money shot. The script takes a sharp turn here, calling out globalism as the real fascistic threat. Forget nationalism. This is about an invisible, insidious force that controls everything from your tax dollars to your thoughts. The script nails it. Globalism isn't about unity. It's about centralized power and exploitation. And yet here we are, watching politicians like Keir Starmer and Paulette Hamilton sell us on the idea of sacrificing our youth for a globalist agenda. The double standards are glaring.
Vistic and disgusting. And globalism is being revered. Now, globalism I consider to be about the further centralization of a power that may be extraordinarily nefarious. It might be the darkest power it's possible to imagine. The darkest power of all, ironically and paradoxically, is false light. Always claiming to be to your advantage and your benefit. Look at the language evoked by is she called Paulette Hamilton there, to fight for your ancestors, to fight for your nation, to fight for righteousness and truth. Well, is that what globalism is about? Do you agree? Let me know in the comments and chat that the Ukraine-Russia war is essentially globalism's last stand. That this is where we see, with the emergence of Trump nationalism, if that's a phrase we can use, that there's an attempt to continue an agenda to occupy and control Ukraine, frustrate and irritate Russia in order to legitimize the continual transfer of resources, both out of Ukraine, but also out of the tax bases of nations that support this globalist project. Remember, Julian Assange says the function of government is to transfer wealth from the hands of the public into private hands.
The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite.
Do you think that doesn't apply in this instance? Do you believe for a moment that these people, I'm not talking about Paulette Hamilton, who I bet is a pretty idealistic person, she certainly sounds idealistic, I'm talking more about Keir Starmer. Do you genuinely believe that their concerns are the protection and preservation of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, the protection and preservation of the UK and British people, or do you think that something peculiar is going on? And I want you to cast your mind back, 12 minutes now, to this curriculum vitae or resume of Friedrich Merz, new leader of Germany, should his coalition succeed, which includes relationships with the WEF, with BlackRock, and various other private and bureaucratic globalist entities. Their fingerprints are everywhere. They do exist. And what we're witnessing now is, through the emergence of independent media and unmarshalled conversation, a genuine opposition to globalism has emerged. Understandably, initially, it's hallmarked by ideas that are already somewhat in place, i.e. nationalism was the last idea, that state nationalism was the last power base before globalism. And some people, like Brett Weinstein, would make the argument that even revitalized and revivified Christianity is an attempt to reboot the last thing that works. And, obviously I'm a new Christian, so I would oppose that, because I think that in Christ you are dealing with the sublime and ultimate truth of the universe. So my point is this. What is the real fascistic threat? Is it nationalism? with its reference to patriotism and of course militarism, and of course there are in-groups and out-groups when it comes to a concept like nationalism? Or is the real fascistic threat globalism, which is almost invisible, like the kind of gases that Kamala Harris claims to smell when visiting the Palisades?
You can smell it.
A kind of insidious force that's invisible and difficult to track, but nevertheless marshals and controls extraordinary power. The power to observe you wherever you are. The power to control your actions and even your thoughts. The power to control the conversations that you have and the conversations that you don't have. I would contest that the latter is a far greater threat. And beyond the dreams of Stalin and Hitler, invisible bureaucracies that expand beyond the globe, control entire populations, that are able to corral together the tax bases of vast territories and control the thoughts and consciousness of all by claiming that misinformation is a bigger threat than pretend diseases and nefarious vaccines. We've got so much more to discuss. Let me know in the comments and chat what you think about that.
This script is a masterclass in exposing hypocrisy and double standards. From 100-year pledges to conscription, it's clear that the real agenda here isn't about protecting Ukraine or defending freedom. It's about perpetuating war and consolidating power. The globalist elites are playing a dangerous game, and ordinary people are the ones who will pay the price. So ask yourself, do you trust these people to lead you into the jaws of death? Let me know in the comments, because this is a conversation we can't afford to ignore. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and don't let them sell you on their lies.